mental health. 1 in 5 adults experience mental illness every year. Depression rates are at an all-time high.
On July 2nd, 1982, Larry Walters, a truck driver with an adventurous spirit, launched a daring flight in a homemade balloon, soaring to an altitude of 16,000 feet with no prior flying experience. However, the consequences of his actions would alter the trajectory of his life significantly. Yet he is not alone in making regrettable decisions that led to tragic outcomes. What constitutes foolish behavior? How far can one disregard safety? Join us as we explore the stories of 9 individuals who tragically lost their lives due to embarrassingly reckless actions. Number 1. 24 feet away from the afterlife. A continuous experiment with dumb overconfidence sent Garry Hoy, a respected lawyer and engineer, to his early grave. Back in the 90s, Garry was a corporate and securities law specialist for the law firm of Holden Day Wilson in Toronto, Canada, and he was doing well. But he had a flaw. He wanted to impress everybody. Hoy wanted everyone to think highly of him, so he would do things just to impress men, women, and even teenagers. He just wanted to watch your faces and your jaws drop in awe. And as much as he was a charm, he would learn soon enough how dumb overconfidence can end a person's destiny in a jiffy. On the 9th of July, 1993, Hoy was on the 24th floor of his office building at the Toronto Dominion Centre, a skyscraper that towered over the bustling city of Toronto. He was going to give some media students a tour of the Toronto Dominion Centre, and he was ready to impress. Little did he know that the day was about to turn dark. Before then, Hoy had a unique way of showing off his office. He wanted them to know that his office was in a skyscraper, but he was safe. So when he had visitors that could give a positive review and probably make him famous, he would move to the other side of the room and run towards the glass window, protecting the people from the bubbling city. Then he would violently throw himself against the window just to prove that the glass was unbreakable. At that time, structural engineer Bob Greer was so embarrassed by Hoy's audacity that he said, "I don't know of any building code in the world that would allow a 160-pound man to run up against a glass and withstand it." But surprisingly, Hoy got away with it every time till July 9th. The writing students had come, so he was giving them a little tour of the Toronto Dominion Centre. A few moments into the door, he decided to pull his famous glass stunt again. He ran to the other side of the room and ran back towards the window before slamming himself against the glass. Miraculously, the glass did not break, but whatever was holding it failed. The glass pulled out, and instead of bouncing harmlessly off the window, Hoy lived his last few moments in horror as he leaped off the window and plummeted to his demise, 24 feet below. The students could not quickly grasp what they just witnessed, as they could only watch in fear. The news of Hoy's passing spread like wildfire, and soon enough, he became the poster boy for 1,000 Ways to Die and Mythbusters. His passing served as a lesson for intentional safety disregard in the workplace. It also teaches about the control of blind audacity, even if you are the chief protocol officer in a top law firm. Hoy's end contributed to the closing of Holden Day Wilson in 1996, which at the time was the largest law firm closure in Canada. Everybody has a form of protest when pushed to the wall. On any normal day, the protesters confront their oppressors, but what a protester did in eviction defiance would send chills down your spine. Number 2, meaningful protest turned suicide. In a terrifying and unexpected twist, David File, a resident of England, showed the world the lengths an extremely frustrated man could go to fight for his comfort. In July 2008, faced with the looming demolition of his apartment building in Stoke, England, David File decided to stage a horrific protest that sent the United Kingdom and the world into a state of shock. File's apartment had been picked for demolition following a government redevelopment project in Stoke. The government had promised File and other residents of the building apartments away from the area. But when it seemed like everyone was cool with the offer, David's protest quickly went from 0 to 100 as he stayed to fight for the residents he had called home. The government had given a vacation order, asking the residents of the former building to move to their new apartments. When everyone had left and the residential area stood desolate, waiting for the redevelopment work, File remained in his apartment. daring the authorities to do something about it. In the end, someone did something. Why did File find it so hard to leave, even after he was offered a new apartment? Was there an underlying beef? File was repeatedly offered new apartments, the latter better than the former every time, but he turned them down. Suddenly, his protest took a dark, twisted turn. In defiance, he took his protest and showed the whole world how he felt when he chose to decapitate himself with a chainsaw. The scene was too gruesome. His elderly parents, John and Jean File, raised the alarm when they could not contact their son in his ground-floor housing association flat in Bishopstoke, Hampshire, on the 5th of July, 2008. The police quickly responded. They asked his parents to stay outside while they broke into the home. When the first sergeant entered the house, he couldn't speak. The scene before him was too horrifying. Speaking on the incident, the deputy coroner Mr. Burge said First Wessex Housing Group had done all they could to help Mr. File, but he was weirdly stubborn. In the 15 years I have been sitting as a deputy coroner, this is the most bizarre case I can recall, Mr. Burge said. It is an appalling way to take one's life, but that is what happened in this case. File's extreme form of protest highlighted the brewing mental health topic that had been a much overlooked weapon of destruction, and the constant need for human understanding and empathy. When people feel the need to be validated by others, they take extreme measures to be noticed. But in a bid to impress his friends, a young man took his audacity too far. Number 3. An impressive jump to eternity. In Sao Paulo, Brazil, a young man, Francisco Lotufo Netos, had a get-together with his friends at his house, and he wanted to show them his progress and what he had been able to achieve. So he made a reckless decision. One that would cost his life and leave a dark smear in the minds of his friends. In 2006, Francisco had a few of his friends together for a little house party. After they had some drinks, he decided to impress them by showing them the strength of the big window in his apartment high up. It was supposed to be an awesome highlight of the night, but Francisco's dumb move became the final highlight of his life. He gathered his friends in a corner of his living room and told them to watch him throw himself against the big window in his Sao Paulo apartment and bounce off easily. Maybe one of them was also looking for a house in Sao Paulo, and he wanted to convince them to buy the same window he was using. Who knows? Francisco ran and slammed himself against the big window in his living room. But instead of the glass to throw him back, it gave way, plunging Francisco out the window and sending him quickly to his demise. It was a tragic setting, because friends, neighbors, and passers-by had just witnessed the gruesome suicide of a young man just partying with his friends. Maybe we could have stopped him. We could have done something to prevent him from throwing his weight against the window. His friends could only wish. But they would always remember the eerie turn of events in 2006 inside Francisco's apartment. Francisco's tragedy is a daunting reminder of the consequences of irrational decisions without proper fact-checking. Even if you think a glass window is unbreakable since it is made out of diamond, never throw your weight against it. The support could give way. His story also serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of seeking other people's validation and trying to impress. It reiterates the dangers of taking blind risks and disregarding a high probability of danger. When a decision was overturned for an inmate on execution, strange karma for his heinous crimes bizarrely hit him as an attempt for prison life comfort, sent him straight into the afterlife to meet his victims. Number 4. Guided to the grave by electrocution. Michael Godwin was convicted of murder in 1989 and sentenced to lose his life as payment for the crimes. He was supposed to pass away by electrocution, but after a series of appeals, his conviction was overturned and he was given a chance to live out the remaining years of his life in prison. Still in a happy mood and grateful that his appeal had gotten a much-needed change and an edge to his prison conditions, Godwin decided to make his life in prison as comfortable as possible. One night in 1989, within the confines of his cell in a South Carolina correctional facility, he discovered the television in his cell was broken, and deciding to fix it himself, he embarked on a little electrical experiment. He was going to fix a pair of headphones connected to his television. Godwin sat on his metal toilet naked and decided to try a new means of cutting wires, rather than waiting for a tool, or taking whatever he wanted to fix to the prison workshop. Sitting down on his toilet, Godwin bit into the connecting wire and blacked out instantly. He was probably wondering what happened when he got into the afterlife. Did he not see that the wire was still plugged in? Why did he decide to sit on his metal toilet when he knew he was trying to do an electrical experiment? These were questions he could only ask himself beyond the grave. Godwin was electrocuted to life beyond just after escaping electrocution. And it was not in the justice system. It was on him for attempting a dangerous experiment with total disregard for safety first. Corrections officers making a routine check found Godwin in his cell. It was a strange accident, Francis Archibald, spokesman for the State Department of Corrections, said. He was sitting naked on a metal commode. The dangers of electricity cannot be overemphasized, especially when you are not a trained professional, and even in the most controlled environment. The Army is one of the most respected arms of service, and the training exercises can be rigorous. But believe me when I say that there are bold officers, but there are dumb ones. This is the story of two officers who quickly found themselves in the danger zone after some dumb stunts. Number 5. The Daredevil mode tragically gone wrong. Tragedy struck early, as two United States Navy pilots decided that they were trained enough and thought it was wise to practice a little Top Gun Maverick in the air, away from any supervision. On October 1, 2017, a T-45C jet aircraft assigned to piloted by Lt. Patrick Ruth and Wallace Birch crashed into an isolated area of the mountainous national forest near Tellico Plains, Tennessee. The cause of the mishap was not due to mechanical, maintenance, or weather-related issues, nor was it due to a psychological episode or inadequate training. They were simply dumb. The pilots decided to take their aircraft out of the bounds of the approved Naval Air Training Command curriculum. They flew at unbelievable speeds, gliding as low as 210 feet, a good 300 feet below their minimum permitted altitude. And they swapped controls back and forth, continuously feeding their adrenaline. Each of them wanted to see what the other person could do with the aircraft. They were so distracted that they failed to see what was coming, even when it was near, and in less than a minute, their lives were about to meet a tragic end. About 35 seconds before the crash, the senior pilot, Lt. Patrick, told his student Birch that they were deviating from the major Navy training line to follow terrain. 11 seconds later, Lt. Patrick took control of the aircraft to demonstrate the terrain techniques he was talking about at an unbelievable speed. 10 seconds before the crash, the senior pilot shaped controls with Birch, who was still a student at that time, and instructed him to make a hard right at a dangerously low altitude. What neither the senior pilot nor the student pilot knew was that they were too slow and too low relative to the rising terrain in front of them. By the time they realized the looming impact of their actions, it was too late. They could not recover, as a sharp upward movement was a part of the limitations of the aircraft. The T-45C Goshawk crashed before they could safely eject themselves. The Navy pilot case revealed the dire importance of good leadership and the consequence of flouting safety protocols even as a trained professional. Carrying out crazy stunts in the air is a foolish idea. Even Top Gun Maverick lost a stunt double while doing some dangerous stunts in the air. In probably one of the most shameless shows of stupidity, a young guy decides to take a picture after pulling the safety pin of a grenade. Anything for social media attention, right? Number 6. A selfie of explosion. In 2017, a young Russian Alexander Sasha Chechik made an international news tragedy after he did something stupid, sending his family into their longest nightmare. When family members come to talk about their loved ones who have either passed away from natural causes, an accident, or an intentionally violent act by another person, they like to say that their loved ones fought. They like other people to believe that the deceased was brave. But this was not the case for Chechik. He was not brave. He was outright witless. In a shameful show for attention, Chechik had gotten a grenade and was about to post something so shocking. The conversation springing up to the actual grenade post probably suggested that Chechik had planned to meet his end soon enough. The dumb grenade idea just made his demise ridiculous instead of tragic. Chechik had sent a text to a friend, including a picture of the grenade in his hand with the pin pulled from the device lying nearby. In the text exchange, the man's friend asks him where he is and if everything is okay. "It depends on what you mean by okay," he replied, posting the photograph of the grenade. Then the friend warned him not to mess around, as it was dangerous, before asking about his location, but he got no reply. Chechik had also sent the grenade pictures to other friends because he had been watching a lot of action movies and believed that as long as he continued to hold the grenade, it would not explode. The young Russia had pulled the pin. The pin is the safety mechanism. The lever on the side is the firing mechanism that activates the grenade when released, but he could not manage to put it back inside. The time between removing the pin of a grenade and trying to put it back when you had only a few seconds was terrifying. But it begs the question, why did Chechik decide to play with an explosive material like that? He perished after the grenade went off, cutting him in half. Chechik's story warns us to stay clear of weapons and ammunition, especially when we are not trained. Police suggested that Chechik must have bought the grenade from an illegal ammunition dealer, and so did not ask how it worked before blowing himself up. Stay away from dangerous things or harmful events, even if you have gotten away with them multiple times. Here is a story of a Florida man who thought it wise to go swim in a lake full of alligators. Number 7. Brutally ripped apart by an alligator. Florida is filled with bays, water bodies, and different water species that have been there for ages, but something tragic happened in June 2022. In Largo, Florida, a couple of people were enjoying a round of frisbee golf in a local park. They played golf, but instead of using a golf bat and a hard ball, they tried to throw a frisbee inside a hole. It was very weird, but they made that work. The game progressed, and everybody had their turns till someone carelessly flung a frisbee into a nearby lake, far from the golf hole. In this situation, the more logical thing to do was to buy another frisbee, or better still referee for your friends, but a gentleman identified as Sean Thomas McGinnis, 47, in the group decided to fetch the frisbee from a lake full of alligators simply because he has done it before and he came back with no scars. Florida is famously home to some 1.25 million alligators, and almost every freshwater body across the state has signs warning people not to step foot in the water to avoid being eaten by an alligator. But it seems that the gentleman who decided to pick the frisbee from the lake thought the signs were not important, and the group of people around did not advise him any better. He'd repeatedly waded into that lake in the past to fetch lost frisbees and resell them back to their owners, despite being warned not to do so multiple times. So this time was just like old times. He was just going to enter the lake, swim to where the frisbee was, pick it up, and swim back to his group. But that was all in his head. He did not get to decide how the day was going to play out. Nature had other plans. The alligators had been patient enough. Sean entered the lake to find the lost frisbee, but he had only gone a short distance before he was attacked by an alligator. His group could only watch in horror as he struggled and cried for help under the powerful jaws of the alligator, and soon enough, after a couple of shrill, heart-piercing cries for help, Sean passed away in one of the most horrible animal attacks. According to Paul Kazi, Pinellas County Director of Parks and Conservation Resources, Sean was the first human alligator fatality documented in Florida since 2019. The next time Sean's body would be found afloat, it had one arm ripped off. Although wildlife trappers had already removed 2 alligators deemed to be possible culprits, it does not change the fact that Sean's dumb decision got him to the grave at a very young age. The alligator did not fly from the lake to attack him while he was on land. He had waddled into the water even when the signs clearly said to stay off the lakes. He was asking the alligator to come and get him. According to the Largo Police Department, Sean was found a few feet from the disc he was looking for. They also said that the deceased had been warned by park rangers previously to stay out of the lake and was threatened with trespassing citations on at least 2 occasions in April. Yet he flouted every single order. Sean's story tells the consequences of disobeying authorities, especially those who would have a truckload of experience in what you were trying to do. And more importantly, if you play stupid games like fetching frisbees from alligator-infested waters, you win stupid prizes, like being eaten by alligators. When you don't have enough money to do an over-the-top advert, at least try to make use of special effects. That's why they were created. This is the awful aftermath of a young man who made stupid decisions while trying to shoot a commercial. Number 8. Disastrously flattened by a train. Consuming a high dose of self-made energy drink before working out is not the only foolish act that can kill you. Advertising an energy drink can too. Back in January 2015, a male fitness model in Burbank, California, decided he wanted to shoot a promotional video for an energy drink company he'd co-founded. But he stupidly figured that many people would not buy his energy drink if he just used a big guy in a gym lifting weights with one hand and chugging his energy drink with another. That was how most energy drink adverts played out, but our model man wanted something different. If you are thinking that the different thing is a special effect of a pilot drawing his aircraft with one hand or a small football player dribbling everybody on the field and scoring before he runs to take his energy drink in his bag, think again. Our model master had other plans in mind and they were embarrassing. He wanted real trains. He planned to make it look like drinking that drink would give you the power to outrace a literal train. It was a great idea if you had enough money to liaise with the train station, and it also required a lot of paperwork. But the model man was not ready for the stress. He figured that he and his team could just trespass onto a restricted area of the Metrolink tracks and shoot the commercial without paying a dime. It was a perfect plan. He'll get his drinks out to the world and save more money. He planned to run on a set of tracks that were parallel to the trains coming up behind him. The camera guy would be shooting from the side so it looks like he was running faster than the trains. But our model man did not do his research at all. Any normal person knows not to play around train tracks, talk more about running on an actual track. Our model man did not get the memo. The side of the railway track he decided to use to shoot the commercial was on a blind bend. You may hear the sounds of a train coming, but you'll never know the track the train was coming from. But our model man failed to consider that. When he heard the sound of a train, he just shouted action and began to run on the railway track. As he ran, the train quickly started catching up behind him. Instead of getting out of the way or getting onto another track, he kept running in a straight line. You know the rest of the story. The camera guy and the other team members who shouted for him to get out of the way were in a daze as different parts of the train continued to ramp over him. He was deceased. No, not deceased, flattened. Amid every embarrassingly stupid decision listed above, the grandest of them all remains a mystery that is so dumb that only foolish people would try to reason why. This is the story of a little pastor from Zambia who enjoyed mimicking Jesus. Number 9. Someone got buried but failed to resurrect. A lot of pastors around the globe have claimed that they are reincarnations of Jesus, doing things the Bible recorded that Jesus did and failing woefully. But one pastor in Zambia was about to prove that he was Jesus's real incarnate. You would think that he would go for the less dangerous things like turning water into wine and walking on water. But the little pastor brewed with audacity, overconfidence, and sheer stupidity. In 2021, he demanded his congregation bury him alive and then dig him up 3 days later, like Jesus. He was on a quest, and he was going to prove that he was Jesus's real incarnate. As instructed, the church members dug him a grave, tied his hands together, and buried him. They left him there for the next 3 days, as the good book said. On the third day, they were ready to exhume his body and bring their pastor out alive to prove every naysayer wrong. But when they dug him out of the grave, their eyes were filled with sheer terror. They discovered the lifeless body of their beloved pastor, and they tried to do some rituals to raise him from the grave. He remained limp. Then the congregation quickly realized that no human was anything like Jesus, and they had failed woefully in a resurrection attempt. Of the 3 church members who volunteered to assist the pastor with his resurrection experiment, one has handed himself over to the police and the other 2 are reportedly on the run. Thanks for watching. Leave your opinion on the most embarrassing ways people died you've heard of below in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more interesting videos.